Testing, testing. One, two, three. I think we are live. Fantastic. Um, Hello everybody, and welcome to another live stream slash podcast. Welcome to the So That Happened podcast. I am Cody. Who are you people? What do you do?
I'm Emperor Tiger Star, and I do maps and stuff.
And I'm Tristan from StepBackHistory.com.
There you go. That's the
Yeah,
signature.
I do history videos on YouTube about topics. People like them, usually.
We have a lot of stuff I actually really want to talk about, and that's why I've kept the YouTube logo up, because we're in for a show of complaining about YouTube and a few other history related stuff, so it's very nice. So Tiger Star brought this up, and he wanted to talk about it, and I think it's a good time to. But there is another thing that YouTube has basically been doing, and Ethan from H3 brought it up. And I wasn't going to make I'm not going to make a video on it because, other people have already talked about it better than I have, and they have more subscribers. But basically what YouTube has done is
Or rather, they're going to do.
What they're going to do is they're going to stop making subscriptions be like time-based, and it's going to be selective, which is like, it seems like a joke. It doesn't seem like that. Those aren't subscriptions anymore. All that is merely suggestions. So,
I mean, a new mere subjections tab could be the good.
I mean, it's almost like, because when I thought of subscriptions, I thought of them literally like magazine subscriptions, right? Like, if you subscribe to a magazine, you're gonna get this in the mail. And what YouTube's basically doing now is they're like, hey, you might not get that magazine in the mail anymore because we don't think you really need it. Like, imagine if you didn't get a Game Informer or like a Time magazine every week because
We were worried you didn't want to read the issue of the thing you subscribed for.
yeah,
if they keep I don't understand. Like, what do they want people to do exactly?
To watch the content they want us to watch.
Yeah,
So they can earn the money.
Yeah, YouTube is basically like, we knew that when the whole adpocalypse thing happened last year, that this was going to be a new beginning for YouTube. Like, the old YouTube died when that whole controversy with the adpocalypse happened last year. They became terrified of losing their money.
You either die a video streaming service or you live long enough to see yourself become online cable.
So what they've tried to basically start branding themselves as now is like television. Because they are pretty much television now, just like ABC and CBS and NBC can't have certain content that scares away advertisers. YouTube is trying to do that too, because they know that, the next time there is a big controversy, that's going to hurt their business model too, which makes sense because they're a business. But now they're basically monetizing off of censorship now. So
what does this have to do with the subscription feed? What do you?
The subscription, basically, this has to do with recommendations that YouTube gives us, which every time you log into YouTube, there are videos that YouTube recommends, even if you don't subscribe to them. There's ways that YouTube has an algorithm that actually preferences more certain types of videos, more family-friendly type of videos.
And they're also showing your subscriptions out of order. So, like, if you look at the subscription feed, like, oh, this video is from yesterday, this video is from an hour ago, and this video is from 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Type thing.
So, for an example, let's say this. I know how YouTube preferences certain types of videos. So there is a hierarchy that they have, which makes sense. Basically, the more family friendly you are, the more the less risk you are, and the more an advertiser will pay for your ad space, because they know that you're going to be a safe bet. And the top categories for this are beauty channels and, ironically, education channels, which I am a part of, and I know this.
But only the education channels that do like the STEM stuff.
No, it can. It's even.
I've done a whole bunch of I've done a whole bunch of stuff to, like, there's ways that the platform promotes different types of content, and it typically does squash on the social sciences and the humanities more than it does like the
you're right,
the physicses and the biologies and stuff.
Yeah, it's usually whenever it's about humanities, it's more controversial. It's about war. It's about, those icky topics that YouTube.
Oh no, this content's making you think.
Well, not just that, but it's content that, sometimes deals with, triggering subjects. Or really, when they mean triggering and offensive, they mean that it scares off advertisers, which is why the adpocalypse was such a huge deal, because it reinforced that idea that, controversial political views, even if they're abhorrent political views, if they're merely even mentioned or referenced in any way, even if it is in historical context, that is now terrifying for YouTube. So how this goes back to recommendations and everything is YouTube has basically been trying to streamline the process and support the content that they like through the recommendations and the algorithm, and trying to suppress videos that don't follow this. There are many videos that talk about this, how they basically have a weight to them. Imagine if a video had a certain tag that YouTube liked, it would be like they were giving a balloon and they'd be floating up and more people would watch that video. But if it was a tag that YouTube didn't approve of, it would be like you had a weight. And yes, more people could still watch that video, but it'd be far harder to. It'd still struggle because the algorithm wouldn't be promoting it as much. There are many videos that talk about this, and I'm sure if you've followed this closely, you've seen them. But I think the best thing that shows what YouTube's really trying to be is the trending tab. And I mean, we bitched about the trending tab last week, but it's just become so blatant that trending tab, that network in music videos and cooking channels and beauty channels, that is what YouTube wants the ideal content to be. Because in a world where those are the only things that they have to worry about, they never have to worry about another adpocalypse again. So really, in a way, this randomization of subscribers is them casting off that, like, the last remnants of what they used to be. And they're basically saying, we know what you want to watch. And even if you say that you want to watch this, we're going to tell you otherwise.
All right, so I guess I should put in here let's lay out what YouTube's official response to this is, so we can just clear the air out and everything like that.
Yeah.
So YouTube's official response to this is there's a couple things. So they found that a lot of their users were subscribing to lots and lots of channels and not unsubscribing, because that was a more difficult thing to do. So that on a long enough time scale, a lot of YouTubers end up with lots and lots and lots and lots of subscriptions, and then would complain to YouTube that they never see the content that they're looking for in the subscriptions feed, because there's just too much garbage in the subscriptions feed or something like that.
Yeah.
And this was their way of trying to, according to them, their idea is that they're going to use your watching habits to find out which videos you actually care about rather than the ones that you say you do because you're subscribed to that person or you're subscribed to something that, you know, you just clicked it and you didn't think about it and you're too lazy to unsubscribe to it. Which is a weird way to think, but that's their thought process. What I think that undermines is like, say there's a channel that you really, really like that doesn't make videos all that often. Does that get punished?
That's what it seems like. It seems like they've been taking steps increasingly for the last few years that completely just, you know, it preferences watch time because, you know, watch time has more ads. People pay more for ads. So it seems like, in a way, this is really them giving a sort of public BS, saying that this is to help, you know, organize videos for people. They're making an issue out of what used to be a non-issue to basically push a way that they want YouTube to be now. And I mean, I think we talked about this last time, how there was a secret algorithm technically, and I've been in contact with YouTube, so I've talked to them many times, and you know, either they have absolutely no idea what this is, or they basically say it's not anything to worry about, and then they just don't contact me. I have not been contacted really by YouTube in like 6 months.
He knows too much.
Yeah, basically we've just like completely had a falling out, and you know, it's mostly just because I've just been sort of complaining about it to them. Be like, why are you doing this? So, you know, that's how it is. But anyway, I think we actually forgot to say, if you have a question for us, and we'll answer it near the end of the podcast, you can either ask us, you can either type it up in the super chat, which we will definitely get to, or you can go onto our Twitter page and or my Twitter page and ask us a question in the thread.
Not doing hashtag AskSTH anymore?
Were we ever doing that?
I did it a few times. Gosh.
Ask STH. You know, I mean, that's, yeah, okay. You can do hashtag.
It's easier to follow along too. I can track them for you.
All right, you can do hashtag ask STH. That works. But anyway, I think we should probably just get on to the other fun stuff. So I'm going update on the channel. What's been happening with the channel? Alternate History Hub. I realize a lot of people like history stuff occasionally, so to kind of bring in more of an audience, I'm going to occasionally just start releasing history videos because I realize that those have a lot more views, and I'm still going to release alternate history videos like 75% of the time, don't get me wrong, but like that 20% is going to be that sort of outreach for new people. So I'm making a new video this week, basically just about the wars that America has fought that we completely forget about. And I'm not talking like Korean War. I'm talking about like tiny little skirmishes in the 19th century that nobody even knows existed.
Many of them genocides against Native Americans.
Well, yeah, there was genocides against, but also there's
a lot of wars that are like the war against the Apaches of like this area, and it's like it was a war of like the Union cavalry against like women and children.
Actually, it's there. After just like basically researching it, it seems like there's kind of two phases, and there is the wars in the east of the Mississippi, and there are the wars west of the Mississippi. And they both had two entirely different sort of I don't know how you could call it, but they had auras,
Aesthetic.
not aesthetic.
Aesthetic in all capitals with
two
spaces
different ways
between the letters.
two different ways they were conducted. Like the Western native wars, everybody thinks of like cowboys versus Indians, but the wars in the East were much more just complete blatant, let's go basically burn down this native village. And usually it was because the natives would go and massacre American settlers. So for like 50 years after the United States was a country, the natives and Americans fought full-on wars against one another and committed atrocities on both sides. And this was...
Okay. One side was definitely hanging on to their like very existence, and one was trying to like literally exterminate them out.
Oh
of
yeah.
an
Well,
area.
oh no, I'm not making the excuse. I'm just saying that the way that it normally went was basically American settlers would try to take the land, and then the natives would attack them, and then the Americans would use that as an excuse to basically completely wipe out their village. Like, I guess this is... I talk about this in the video, but the best example of this is the Seminoles. The Seminoles were the native tribes to Florida, and when the United States purchased Florida, they had a plan to basically get rid of the Seminoles and deport them. The Seminoles didn't really like this, of course, so in response, the United States basically sent a military invasion force to invade the peninsula and drive out the natives by force. That didn't really go well, and the war lasted about 6 years. And for context, the United States only fought in World War II for about 5 years. 4 years. So there's just this war against a native tribe that lasted for far longer than really any other modern war, but we completely forget about it. And the way that this war was conducted was really just the United States would bring in troops and burn villages to the ground, and then the natives would fight back, but then the United States would then send more troops in and burn those villages to the ground, and this was how it was conducted for 6 years.
Yeah, if you ever wonder why indigenous people are like really, really, really angry that Andrew Jackson's on the $20 bill, this is why.
Yeah, this entire thing was because Andrew Jackson, his policy was pretty much, we're going to remove all of the natives east of the Mississippi. But the problem was that the natives didn't want to leave, and so we kind of forget that time period before the Trail of Tears happened, and we're just kind of like, oh, they sort of walked. No, the Trail of Tears only happened because the natives lost a military war, and like their villages were completely destroyed, and then they were sent to Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think actually Tiger Star's like worst presidents video kind of touched on this, because I think I remember Andrew Jackson being on that list, right?
No, I said I was mad that I forgot to include him on the list.
Oh.
But anyway, yeah, so the native wars, but they were like legit wars. Like it wasn't just it wasn't. I mean, it was I can't even say that, because when you look at the specific,
it wasn't an episode of Cheyenne on
it was
TV.
actually weird, because I was expecting the wars against Native Americans to be really sort of one-sided, Americans winning, and then the natives just kind of lose every battle until they're eventually driven out. But it seemed like, especially in the Seminole Wars, that the natives won most of the engagements. They won most of the battles, and actually there were tales about how they would cut off American supply lines, and Americans would basically be stuck in Florida, so they had to eat their horses. But the only reason why the Americans were eventually able to drive out the Seminole was simply because they had the numbers, and they had, you know, an entire nation state supporting them. So it was really just a matter of throwing as much men at the situation as you can until they're eventually done. I think they said 40,000 men served in the Seminole Wars, which seems like the number for like a modern military engagement. And this was just to drive out one tribe in Florida. And they lost a lot of the battles. There were massacres of American soldiers. Because, you know, the natives didn't have sticks or anything. They had full guns, and they fought a guerrilla war. Does anybody else have anything to say about this? I feel like I'm rambling.
You're just making it harder for us smaller history channels to compete with you now.
Yeah, no.
Because now you're doing our shtick.
Well, the only reason I'm doing this is I'm doing a history video occasionally is because the numbers are, you know, actually bigger. Like, I love alternate history, don't get me wrong, but
yeah, you realize their competition's too much for you.
No, I mean, sometimes there's very much a niche for it. Like the last history video I did had 1 million views, so it's like,
I think I don't do war. I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, so, you know, I'm just going to do it occasionally. It'll basically just bring in more people, and then I'll be like, hey, you like those history videos? Well, here's alternate history videos, which is like most of my content. So
you're doing what MTV did.
No.
Yeah, we're called the music video channel, but we're going to
that.
have all these other music TV shows because those seem to do really well, and all those like alternate history stuff. We're that's just going to be on the side.
Don't even joke about that, because you know that's how the fans, because you know that's how they're going to try to take it, and that's not.
And then eventually you're going to do what Screw Attack did and goes, yeah, the original thing we had our channel for, we're going to make a second channel for that. We're going to call it ATV2. And then eventually that's going to be overloaded, and then we're going to make VH1.
Alternate History Channel 2, Alternate History Edition.
And then that channel is going to be overloaded. We're going to have VH Classic.
Yeah. Oh, somebody asked, what about Fallen Timbers? Yes, I want to talk about Fallen Timbers so much. So going back to...
This?
Okay. So going back to the Native Wars and everything. So people forget that at the turn of the 19th century, before there was the West, which was like, you know, the Dakotas and everything west of the Mississippi, the West in like 1803 was Ohio. And when the Americans tried to bring settlers into Ohio, there were native tribes that lived there. And in response to that incursion, they formed an alliance, and this was called the Western Confederacy, and it was pretty much an alliance of all the tribes from upper Wisconsin down to Ohio and up into Michigan. And this was where the native leader Tecumseh came from. But basically they, for a period of like 5 years, they fought skirmishes with what was essentially an American militia, because the United States didn't really have an army. And the United States lost most of the battles. There was a battle by the Maumee River called St. Clair's Defeat. There was 1,000 troops.
Did they
on
win?
each. No, so there was 1,000 troops on each side, 1,000 natives, and 1,000 American militiamen. And at the end of the battle, 600 Americans died. And the natives only lost 20. Like, this is like modern day, like, Taliban versus the United States, basically, in terms of numbers. And because of this, because the Americans lost so many men, it actually caused a little political freakout in Washington. People got fired, and Washington said, well, shit, we need to actually have an efficient military. So he brought on a general called Mad Anthony Wayne, who was a Revolutionary War hero, and said, your job is to make a professional army. And he was like, okay. And they created something called the Legion of the United States. And this was pretty much the first professional army that the United States had, and it was sent to try to defeat the Western Confederacy. So Anthony Wayne went and they basically marched out into Ohio. And where they battled was where I live. I live in Northwest Ohio, and Northwest Ohio at this time was something called the Great Black Swamp. It was basically like the Mississippi Bayou, but in the north. So the natives lived all down the river, and Anthony Wayne would even said that if you looked at the Maumee River, it was basically just illuminated by campfires. And so for 2 years, this was a contested area between the United States and the natives. Eventually, it ended in something called the Battle of Fallen Timbers, which was when it was kind of like the final battle where the natives and the Americans fought head to head, and it was called Fallen Timbers because the night before there was a tornado and the forest had actually collapsed. So the natives used the fallen trees as cover while the American cavalry tried to take them out. Eventually the natives lost, and they tried to retreat to a British fort called Fort Miami, because at the time the British still had forts across the entire country, even though officially they were supposed to give the land to the Americans. And the British said, sorry, natives, we can't really let you in because we'll cause a war with the Americans if we do that, so you're on your own. So the natives lost the battle because of that. Well, because they lost the Battle of Fallen Timbers, this basically was the war that won the Americans the Midwest, all of the Great Lakes. The natives signed a series of treaties, and they basically agreed to leave Ohio. But the thing was that they didn't. Most of them left everything, in mainland Ohio. But where I lived in Northwest Ohio, which was already a swamp, the Americans couldn't really do anything about it, and so the natives just kind of stayed there. So,
see, I do think there's a little bit of we need to make the statement, because this is just taught so nonchalantly in U.S. history all the time, that these are wars of conquest and displacement. This is literally taking people's sovereign territory, beating them up, and pushing them off into smaller and smaller.
That's the thing I found fascinating about this. It isn't just the sort of. I think what happened to the natives was bad. It was. But also I find it almost sad that you can't. There's two ends that you can't go. You can't say basically slaughtering the natives was a good thing, but you also can't really act like the natives were necessarily completely helpless, because that's wrong. The natives weren't completely helpless. In fact, that kind of undermines, how well they fought in the war. It's almost like the United States kind of forgot that the natives were such good warriors. They kept us at bay for like 200 years. So it almost undermines a little bit that sort of fighting spirit they had. But yeah, that was the thing that when researching, I was completely blown away at how well the natives fought against this, essentially European fighting force, and they they only lost because they were overrun by numbers.
This is making me want to make my video on the Comanches sooner.
Yeah. But,
oh my gosh, the Comanches are so scary.
So anyway, yeah, like yeah, I don't know. It's like I don't know. The Native Wars is something that just fascinates me because it wasn't simply just a genocide by smallpox. It was a series of small little conquests between what was essentially little nations, and they had their own little native politics that the U.S. had to exploit, and America literally had to send a military force in each time to clear out the land in places that we don't even think about today, like Ohio or Indiana or Michigan or Georgia or Alabama. Like, you can't.
Yeah, but keep in mind that sometimes these battles are like the Sand Creek Massacre, and not like these like heroic things that they come and report about.
Well, I mean, really, a lot of the battles were just mostly slaughters on each side. It was either the natives would slaughter the American troops or the Americans would slaughter the native troops. It wasn't really, it was each side usually was that sort of thing.
Except that, like, in a lot of situations, this is especially stuff out in the West, where like their battle was them going into
I'm talking about
territory
East.
And like literally like murdering children. And
I'm talking
like
about the
that.
East. I'm not. Yeah, in the West. No, the West was completely different. Because the East was before the Industrial Revolution, so this was before the Americans really had a technological advance against the natives. And they were also fighting in forests. They were fighting in fields. They didn't have that much cavalry, so the natives were a much more terrifying force for them because they were more equal. But yeah, in the West, when the United States started industrializing, then it just started becoming a steamroll. So yeah, those weren't wars. The wars in the West were basically just kill the natives and then take their land. But in the East, those were much more traditional military engagements. So yeah, that's all I was saying.
But they would come back in the West and tell stories that were kind of like this because they sounded almost like something that was recognizable, and then they turned out to be like these just absolute genocides. It was read up on the Sand Creek Massacre, everybody.
Cody, if you don't do a 2-part video where one's about the Battle of Tippecanoe and then the second video is what if William Henry Harrison actually lived, I will be very disappointed.
That's what I want to do. I wanted to do that's my dream video I want to do is a thing about Fallen Timbers and Tippecanoe. And
Tyler too.
And Tyler too. Yeah. But no, Fallen Timbers is like that it's that local battle that like everybody knows. And what was it? Yeah, my school was even called Anthony Wayne High School. And I was like
oh boy.
So yeah, well, that's the but anyway, yeah. So I think we should take want to start taking questions, or do you guys have a topic you guys want to talk about, or no?
I'm interested. I'd be interested. This is a YouTube-y type thing. I'm preparing for my longest video in my channel's history, coming out on Thursday.
Woo!
And gonna try to see if I can push the limits as to like how long a video can be before people start like being checking out.
Usually, I'd say 10 to 12 minutes.
Oh well, this one's 22, so we'll see.
I mean,
well, it also depends how dedicated your fan base is too.
I mean, normally, when I first uploaded my first 20-minute video, which was the Napoleon video, really you just have to pace it out, That's all. You gotta make it more in arcs. And so it's sort of, I don't know. I mean, as long as it's not just one drawing out thing. I don't know. I'm like burning up hot because I turned off my AC so the mic couldn't pick it up, but now I'm like sweating and it's completely distracting me. So I'm gonna go turn on my AC because I'm dying. I'm gonna have a heat stroke. Oh boy. Ah.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll see how this goes. I'm we'll see. I'm a little nervous. Oh, so how's let's see.
Ah.
We all wait patiently.
Oh shit. Ah.
So Cody,
Yeah.
would you agree that when it comes to the Midwest, the only spring that we have is that we spring directly into summer as soon as winter is over?
That's not even a joke. I think I only remember 1 week that we had actual flowers on the trees. Oh, actually, no, it wasn't a week. It was like 3 days. That's all it was. Because we had snow 1 week, and then there was this brief 3-day intermission, and then the thing just skyrocketed to 70 degrees, and it stayed like that this entire time.
Yep.
But I'm not complaining. I mean, my girlfriend gets sick anyway for some reason during spring and fall, so it's like it's better when it just goes
Probably
from
pollen.
It is pollen, but it just goes straight from, winter into summer. Have you guys seen the Battlefield 5 trailer?
Ah,
No,
yes.
I've never played a Battlefield game.
So you have seen it then, Tiger Star.
Only because I saw a bunch of people complaining about how a lady was in World War II, and so I had to see the trailer for myself.
Ladies can't war.
I want to talk about it. It
was about ethics and video games journalism.
So I gotta say, I hated the trailer. I absolutely hated it.
I mean, I did too, and there's definitely a lot of legitimate things to complain about, but 70% of the complaints I saw were like, "Oh my gosh, a woman in World War II? How disrespectful!"
This is how usually most internet stuff is, but it's like the women thing. I guarantee people will just not talk about when the game actually comes out. This will probably be just for like 2 weeks. People will be bitching about it until they actually see the gameplay in June. I mean, the thing is that this was not the campaign trailer. This was a multiplayer trailer, which I think most people that watch the trailer don't really think that. They think they're watching a campaign, and it's not. The trailer was horrible because for some reason DICE thought it would be a good idea for the first impression of this game to show every like massive sort of customization thing you can do up to 11. Like, you can have this skin for the tank, or you can have this face paint, or you can have, this freaking arm, or you can play as a woman character, which is like, Call of Duty World War II did that too. And I think if they were much more subtle about this shit, people wouldn't complain, but they basically threw it all off. They threw it all at people at the same time, and I guarantee when the gameplay actually comes out for this, the game is going to look absolutely nothing like this, because even Jack Frags, who played it, he actually played the game, and he said that the game is nothing like that trailer, and they has no idea why they even did that, because they made it just completely unappealing. So, yeah, the trailer itself was bad, but I think they said that the gameplay is actually slower paced than Battlefield 1, and it's actually much more tactical, and the customization stuff that they have is not gonna be, sort of, it's not gonna be that in your face. And when it comes to women in Battlefield, I mean, if it's a multiplayer game, I don't really care. as long as it's not like in your face, because the only reason I hated Call of Duty, I was like, okay, I don't really care about women being in Call of Duty World War II. It's when they scream, and for some reason they had them scream way louder than the males, and it was just annoying. So as long as they do it right and it's just more like a skin, I don't really care. But
I just want to see,
but not the campaign. If they do in the campaign, they do basically, you know, historical. If they don't have a historical accuracy in the campaign itself, then I'm gonna be pissed. But if it's the multiplayer,
because World War II,
my video games.
Because everyone knows that World War II video games have always been accurate.
Yeah, you know what I want to see? I want to see some. I would be super. I've never bought a Battlefield game. I'd buy one just to see some Night Witches fuck up some fascists. I would love that. I would love to watch that.
That makes me cringe. Oh God, man. No.
What? Red Army, lady troops killing some Nazis? That would be the best video game.
That would be entertaining.
I mean, they have to do it accurately, though. They can't have it be
They had sniper brigades.
There, sniper. What is the sniper series up to? Like 400? Sniper 401. That's you can do.
That just.
I mean, really, they had their own sniper brigades and they had their own Air Force brigades for the Soviet Army, so that would be historically accurate.
I know, but just the way that. Oof.
Killing Nazis.
Gentlemen, we're doing one thing.
I don't see what
one thing only.
I don't see what would be so bad about. I would rather see traditional D-Day and North Africa, and so I just want to see what was in Battlefield 1942 and in, like, you know, Easy Company, stuff like that, but with modern DICE engines. And I don't know. I think that if you focus, if DICE basically tries to make it like, you know, instead of showing the majority of what the war was, which was, you know, it was white men, I have a feeling that it's going to be taking every little minority story and basically trying to make that seem like that's what the true war was, but it wasn't. And no.
I think people just take video games too seriously.
Yeah, for reals.
I mean, you can't really say video game. No, because this is my defense for it, is because video games are not like, you know, the sort of kid things that they were 30 years ago. They are a media source. They make millions of dollars. So I feel the way that video games are today is a reflection just as much as books or movies or television shows are, and, you know, how we have certain stuff. So when you basically just write off, oh, it's just video games, you know, that's not the reality, because millions of people play these and buy these. So for many people, this is going to be their introduction of how World War II was. And I think for me, what got me into history, really, what got me into World War II was Call of Duty World at War, which showed just...
See, I could easily make an argument that people are going to remember World War II being a bunch of Nazis and giant death robots because of Wolfenstein. Like, you can make that same argument about anything.
But Wolfenstein didn't try to make itself seem accurate. Wolfenstein...
And there's nothing about the trailer that said, hey, this is supposed to be an accurate video game.
I wasn't saying that. Battlefield 5, if that's the multiplayer, I don't care. I don't care if it's the multiplayer. But if it's the campaign and they're basically trying to, you know, show that all of these little special stories were what the majority of the war was like, then that's when I'd be like, okay, that's a little bit inaccurate, you know? That's what I'm saying. Like, it'd be the thing is, like, I would probably say that
when it comes to these World War II games, like we got a lot of square-jawed, corn-fed Iowa boys, shooting their big guns at the Germans. Like there's a lot of those games. I would love to see a few more of like if I remember, Battlefield 1 kind of had like a section that was kind of like a Lawrence of Arabia type story, like more stuff like that. And like, I don't know, I feel like the space has been very constrained because of the demographics of video game playing that could be expanded in quite a bit.
Okay, but what other thing would you have in World War II? I mean, you have, yeah, I could see, there were women fighters in the Soviet Union, but where else would you have that in World War II?
The Australians actually had a separate women's Army Corps and Air Force Corps.
Did they serve?
Yeah. They were actually some of the, behind the Soviet Union, some of the highest participatory women's brigades.
So you're saying that if the Battlefield campaign was basically just about that, you wouldn't see that as in any way.
I never said it just has to be about that.
No, but I'm saying like even if that was
possible.
I mean, if you could have like one story of that, like the Soviets, I'd be completely fine. I'd think that'd be great. But if it was like, they basically just have different sort of stuff, then it'd be like, it's a little inaccurate. I don't know. But
again, World War II video games, not exactly known for their perfect accuracy.
Yeah, isn't Battlefield the series that like showed a bunch of signs in Pakistan in Arabic? Like, where is this accuracy they talk about?
Yeah, but Battlefield 3 and 4 aren't historical. They're just modern. I mean, hell, Battlefield 3 was about a revolution happening in Iran. Like, a war between Russia and America. Like, it's not... It's a fictional story, just like Modern Warfare was a fictional story. But if it's a World War II game, and, this is going to be people's first experience with World War II, if they basically try to, show an inaccurate view of what the war was like, then that's an issue. Which really, yeah, I think that the next thing that they're going to do, which I would be fine with, is they need to just remake, like, if you're going to do the skin stuff, like, just remake Battlefield 2142. Like, have this future stuff. You could have as much anything that you want, and nobody would complain because it's in the future. But I mean, hell, I don't think people are even complaining. Like, you can't say that people are mad that, it's women in video games, because, one of the most successful video games right now is Rainbow Six Siege.
Now, you go to the comment section of that video, they're like, this is so disrespectful to the forces who died.
Yeah, but the reason why the people were...
Women never fought in the war.
Well, women were like 1% of the war.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't small. I'm just saying that's what the majority of the complaints are.
Yeah, but when the reason there's the difference is because when people think of world... Like, if it was modern day, people wouldn't think about it, Like, that's why...
I don't know. I still hear people complaining about women in the military.
Really? Because Rainbow Six Siege has 30 million players. Half of their operators are women. And nobody thinks about it. Nobody cares. And so, it's not like there's this sort of like, oh, people just don't like women in video games. It's if people feel like there is going to be a historical sort of, change, if they're going to try to rewrite history, then...
Yeah, I don't think Emperor Tigerstar would get, like... I mean, if there was a 50-50 gender ratio, like, like soldiers at D-Day, yeah, I think both of us would be kind of like,
I mean, like, even the trailer only showed one female the entire trailer and then like 8 guys. So it's not like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, the majority were displayed as women.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just saying if it was in the campaign that they only showed from the sort of perspective, like they were intentionally not showing from the the American side or from like the British side or something like that. That's what I'm saying.
Well, either way, it's pointless because I don't play Battlefield.
Yeah. I guess when it comes to like those kind of World War II games, I think that the European War has been done. I would love to see some more variety, even if it's not just trying to show all of the brave women that fought and died to defeat fascism, but like even things like the Battle of Hong Kong, which had like whole like movement of Japanese soldiers on bicycles and things like that. Like there's a lot of cool stories that could just like replaying D-Day over and over again would be really cool to see.
I mean, if we did Pacific War, I'd be up for Pacific. Could they even do Pacific War in this day and age?
Why not?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Let's do.
You'd have to be historically accurate and show what actually happened, but
I mean, just based on the amount of disappointment I've gotten from tons of video games and movies, I just now assume that every media iteration of World War II will have huge inaccuracies in it. Unless I'm proven
Cough.
otherwise.
Fury, cough.
But yeah, but like if things weren't accurate in the places where like it counted, like nobody would be more mad than Emperor Tiger. So this is the guy who went on a rant about the historical inaccuracies of Halloween masks. Like
that is true.
Oh yeah, you did do that. Yeah. Anyway, I say we get to comments or questions. Yay.
Cody says as he regretted bringing up this video game.
Oh boy.
You don't even deny it. You're just
it's all right, Cody. The chat's with you. Don't worry.
Pinoid News asks, y'all concerned about the war for fright supremacy?
All right. I don't think I'm Gen Z enough for this. Does anyone know what the story is here?
Are we talking like?
I tried
wait, is fright supremacy a meme that I don't know about, or is this like a?
I think so.
Man,
these children and their memes on my lawn.
When I think fright supremacy, I literally think like racist Casper for some reason. That's all I think.
From what brief research I could do, that's what it is.
Casper, the racist ghost.
Basically, it's like a YouTube channel where somebody parrots a bunch of alt-right type positions, but like uses it to refer to fright people, and it's all about ghosts.
Fright.
That's basically all I could figure out. I tried doing some research while you were telling the like wars story.
He's got like
and I was trying to figure it out.
He's got like 7,000 subs. Like
I'm very confused, but then again, much of the internet confuses me these days. So
what is fright supremacy? I don't know it. No. I will get back to you on that. Why not? Thank you, Hungry Country Ball, for your contribution. Twin Leaf, wow. He says you should make a video on if the Metro series by Dmitry Glukhovsky actually happened. Oh my god, yeah. Actually, my friend who is a massive Metro fan, and he has been pretty much harking on me ever since I started doing lore videos to do one about Metro.
What's Metro?
Metro is it was originally a book series and then it became a video game series. It's about basically the Cold War happening in the 80s, and the only people that survived, it's about basically the Russians living in Moscow and surviving by going underground in the metro system. And they basically made an entire sort of society in that system, and like above ground there's like demons, and like in the metro system itself there's different factions and they're basically fighting. But it's pretty hard to explain, but basically it's a very successful book and video game series, and I don't know when. There's a new Metro game that's coming out. I don't know when. I'm actually looking it up. 28. But if... Yeah, it's... Oh. Wait. When did it come out? Oh, it's coming out in 2019. So when the new Metro game comes out in 2019, that's when I'll do a video on it. Cool.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yay.
Guarantee.
Okay. Did you watch Infinity War yet?
Yes.
Nope.
God.
But what's it called? I am not too crazy about spoilers, so I already know. There's like you couldn't have been on the internet for the last like 3 weeks and not know half the world dies.
Well, I guess
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler
Including
alert,
apparently
people.
Spider-Man or something.
Tristan, I don't feel so good. Anyway, okay, cool. So, I guess we'll say the next one. Thanos asks, what if Thanos killed half the population in a second? I actually want to do this video, and I'm going to do it when Infinity War Part 2 comes out, next year. But, like, that'd be... If Thanos just, like, wipes out half of the population of Earth... Like, imagine the economic and social ramifications that happen with that. And even worse, if that happened, like, if we were under the assumption that that happened forever. Like, the Avengers didn't, like, go back in time or something or change it.
To restore all of their most important franchises for future.
Yeah, like, fucking, you'd have... Like, that'd be actually very interesting. Like, you know, half the population dies. What actually happens? Would Thanos be right?
I imagine it would be some sort of like sick, well, not a sick joke, but like a sick reality that we would actually be better off.
Also,
because,
people
like,
in the chat,
amount of
if you
people
have not...
using resources would be significantly lower, and so people would be more prosperous, kind of like the aftermath of the bubonic plague.
Also, people in the chat, if you haven't watched the movie yet, don't complain to me about spoilers. You've had like 3 weeks to watch it. If you were so keen on it, you would have watched it by now. Come on.
Plus, like, if you've been on the internet for those 3 weeks, most of the juicy stuff's already been spoiled.
Like, there was memes
either way,
and everything. But anyway, yeah.
Didn't people get disintegrated or something? So, like, wouldn't that cause, like, smoke and, like, decrease the planet's atmosphere? And,
They
like,
got turned to
or
ash.
the temperature?
They basically just turned... They didn't get smoke, but they just turned to ash. And
that could possibly lead to, like, you know, a darkening.
But
Either
it wasn't
way,
like a lot of it. It wasn't like a lot of it. It was like I don't know. It'd be like I would say a plate size. Like, somebody just turns to ash, and it's not like a pile. It's like a little bit of leaves. So I don't.
Okay. Well, like, I mean, the first thing is there's a big winner in this, which is this planet and biosphere that we live on and in. Less humans would definitely be good for that.
I think.
Yeah, and like I said, the resource problems would be much less significant.
I mean, the main problems would oh my god, actually that would be pretty awesome, because we could bring in actual historical stuff of where that did help, because we pretty much had a real life Infinity Gauntlet happen in history, and that's called
the Black Death.
The Black Death. And
yeah,
basically what people don't realize is that Europe before the Black Death was dying. It was overpopulated. It couldn't create enough food, and there was mass starvations all of the time. There was religious wars and everything. And then fucking Thanos, or the medieval version of Thanos, came in, which was the Black Death.
which are fleas.
And they
Fleas
wiped out...
are Thanos.
They literally wiped out a third to half of the population. And because of that, many people think that the Black Death is the reason why the Renaissance even happened in the first place. So,
and also, it pretty much sent, like, peasantry, it, like, led that idea of going extinct, because you couldn't just have a bunch of grunt people being peasants on your property anymore. You actually had less manpower, and so
Yeah.
to attract workers to your property to take care of it, you actually had to pay them.
Yeah, peasants had to get more rights. They had to get paid more because their work was a lot more valuable now. So I don't think the modern world, will have as sort of equal of a thing happen. I think it'd probably be worse for the world because, everything is so interconnected now, economically, and all of that. I think for a while, at least for 50 to 100 years, for a temporary amount of time, everything will be in chaos. Everything will be utterly just like, nations will collapse, the economy will just be non-existent. Really, things would be crazy for a while, but in the end, it would kind of reset, and sort of buy humanity and the world enough time, because there wouldn't be as many factories running. I mean, if we want to bring global warming into this whole thing, but there also, there wouldn't be as many forests cut down, like Tristan said, economically or ecologically. It'd actually be great for the world. So, shit.
And also,
Thanos is
we
right.
live in these societies. Here's something I can speculate on with this.
Yeah.
We live in this society now where we're just past the tipping point where over half of the population live in cities. And with the population being cut in half, what it would destroy really thoroughly is a lot of rural communities. And cities would probably lack the state functions to run on to have any sort of structure. So there'd be a lot more city states. I think that a lot of the major cities would be able to recover pretty quickly and be kind of the de facto powerhouses that would restart
Suddenly,
society.
rent in New York
Whoa.
is finally a lot cheaper.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna argue against that, because I think that I think cities would be basically black holes if sort of the government did break down, and it would become sort of that, it'd be a very small area where, if the government basically collapsed, because we have to think about, in this world, the United States pretty much would collapse. The cities would be.
But if a government could persist, cities.
I mean, how would law and order work? How would resources work? Like,
half the reason, the thing about cities is, for example, this came up because I used to go to a really tiny university, but it got some massive, there was some magic budget cuts that were happening in that period, and to the English universities in Quebec, and there were 3, and one of them was way smaller than the other 2, and the other 2 could handle a thing, because if you have 10 people in, say, public relations or something, and you have to fire 2 of them, that's different than if you take a 15% budget cut and you have 2 people in your public relations. What do you do?
Yeah, but I'm just
saying,
a
lot of communities, a lot of small rural communities, could lose extremely important people and lose extremely important things that require them to function, while cities have more of those redundancies.
But I'm saying, okay, let's take London into example. London got its police force cut, it got its budget cut, and simply just from a small budget cut, crime drastically rose. And you can see that in any city where basically the police budget is cut, is that crime rises as a result. So say we have a situation where, yes, the government still exists. If half of the population is gone, if we assume half of the police are gone, then I'm just saying that I can't imagine, especially in, because we live in a world where the LA riots happen, where because there was a blackout in New York City, those riots happened. I think that, and when riots do happen, fires spread. They permanently destroy, sort of communities. So even though you say, yeah, the rural communities will lose more valuable people, I think that those immediate riots and the civil sort of the sort of infighting will really destroy the
But what's the source of this infighting?
Because every single time there is one single insignificant, like one little sliver inconvenience that happens in American cities, there is a riot, there is looting, there is fires and arson set. So I cannot imagine that if half of the population was basically gone, if there was like this rapture-like apocalypse, I do not think that people will just sit by and just be like, oh, well, I'm still going to abide by the law. No, there will be mass riots. There will be blackouts. Yeah. There will be resource shortages because...
No, there wouldn't be resource shortages because the need to consume resources would have been cut in half.
But you can't say that people are going to transport those resources anymore. You know, if it took... if it used to take 10 guys to do a job on, you know, sort of a electrical grid or something like that, and then 5 of them are gone, you know, there's, for temporarily, for at least for however long, there's still going to be a strain on, you know, power, on shipping, on what resources are basically brought. And in that temporary sort of, you know, research thing, there's going to be riots. And there's going, like, way bigger than we've ever seen in L.A. or in New York.
Although half the potential rioters would be gone, too.
But yeah, just because half the potential rioters would be gone, there's still going to be rioting. And there's... Like, just because it's half the population doesn't mean that the riots are going to be any worse. It was a small sliver of a population that did the rioting in LA, and the area still feels the ramifications of that. You know?
So like let me propose a different like scenario in the same situation. So Thanos, you know, ices half the population. So let's contrast 2 American cities. Let's just say New York City and Gunsville, Mississippi, which is a real city, because of course. And Gunsville, Mississippi has as its law and order a sheriff and a sheriff's deputy.
Yeah.
25% chance both of them are dead. Okay. New York City has thousands of police officers, so probably at least several hundred would still be around. That's and yes, there would be chaos. I think that like when you talked about like periods of 50 to 100 years, there's chaos. Yeah, there's going to be rioting and looting and all sorts of bad, nasty stuff because that's what happens when the services of the state are disrupted temporarily. That is a thing that happens sometimes. But you give it even like 2, 3, 4 years, that's going to be over. That's going to burn itself out. That's like a reaction to a change in circumstance rather than like the natural state of the world when there isn't like law and order. You get like cities I feel like would be the fastest to like get their shit back together than like
look at it from a percentages standpoint though. Say you have a small town population of like 100 people or 3,000 people and you have a police force that is like 10 people, right? Say half of that police force in that 3,000 population is gone. But also, there's 1,500 people in the population that are gone. Like, the population, the percentage of police compared to the civilians is far greater compared to that of a city. Because like half of the New York police department is gone, and half of the New York population is gone too. But now you're basically leaving that far smaller of a percentage of police to deal with a populace which is essentially freaking out.
Only for a little bit. Like,
but
keep in mind,
only for a little bit still scars these communities permanently. And this
or at
is
least
also
for a
going,
long time.
but this is also going to be. I mean, you're basically saying, yeah, city-states will rise, but I don't think the city-states will be where the cities used to be. Those city-states will be in areas far away from those huge populated areas. Because
I don't know, because like also these cities are like where all the major cities in the world are there for reasons, because of not only just like,
but they're there for a reason in a world where there is a government and there is an economy. There are people who basically have bountiful resources and stuff like that. But when that stuff is gone and there is that mass hysteria for, 5, 10, 15 years, people aren't going to think, well, I can, we're going to make these cities better. They're going to think, I need to basically escape the mass hysteria and get away from this chaos. And where are they going to go? They're going to go out into the rural areas. They're going to try to escape, because for that temporary time, it's going to be basically just civil war. Because you have a
who would organize a civil war?
Oh, you'd
gangs.
be surprised.
You just have gangs. That's all you'd have. You just have gangs.
Hey
and
guys, all the carpetbaggers got destroyed. Let's rise up again.
Because you would have cities that still have a huge amount of population relatively, but also the government and the economy are basically gone. They've basically collapsed. So, that's just going to lead to everybody basically competing for resources. And if we compete for resources when there's a simple riot, imagine how it's going to be if basically people think it's the apocalypse. Like, that's going to permanently destroy those cities, and any new cities that happen are pretty much going to be people escaping that. So it's probably going to be in more sort of rural areas that are then going to be more refugee areas for people escaping. That's what I'm thinking. Just simply because, it's the hierarchy of needs. What do you need? You need food and you need safety. And in a city that isn't able to protect that, where people are competing over resources, that isn't assured. Like, I would immediately leave the city if something like that happened.
I'm not sure. I mean, like, this is talking this out is, I think we're like dancing around a lot of discussions that would last a lot longer, that would go to like fundamental human nature and like how people react in disasters that, like, there's.
I mean, I don't think it really requires it, because we have historical proof that this is how people react in these situations. This is what happens when there is even a momentary slip up, is people take advantage of it. People loot, people set fires, people cause riots, people compete. And I'm just saying, if you can have a night, there was one night in 1972 in New York where there was a blackout, and it caused billions of dollars in damage because people went out and just set fires and rioted.
There's an interesting thing about that, actually, because I learned this when I was teaching U.S. history, is that blackout, the New York City blackout in 1972, you said, right?
It was sometime during that,
yeah. What's interesting about it is that when the reason why there was a riot and why everyone freaked out over a blackout is because they were really rare back then, because infrastructure was less left to decay than it is today. And so like we expect blackouts to a certain extent today because we've just kind of accepted a certain amount of our civil infrastructure to be bad and decaying. Well, like that wasn't the case back then, so a blackout was actually like a big deal in the 70s.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, but I mean, it also shows that when something unexpected happens, it's like, half of people just turning
humanity will find a way to make things worse.
Yeah, like that. If it's something so unexpected, like everybody just like collapsing into dust, I feel like it'd be. I mean, also think about in terms of cities. Who are the people? What are the jobs in the cities today? They're financial, they're economic, they're not based on growing food, they're not based on, I mean, I say this as somebody who makes a job off of YouTube. My job, if the world collapsed, would not be able to sustain myself. But if you are in a more rural area, say you can grow your own food, you can protect yourself, I would say those are the areas that would be more and also there's less people that you have to worry about, and you can also defend because, you're it's spread out. I say they're in a better situation to rebuild more than any city would. A city would just be chaos for a while. And
For a while.
Well, for a while.
I do mean like we would live in like the skeleton of an infrastructure system that we really couldn't rebuild, and all of it is designed to funnel things towards these large cities. I don't know. I do feel like cities have this like a lot of pre-built stuff that would be difficult to remake at a time where we lost a lot of people, and so even if like a good chunk of the city becomes like kind of empty, we would probably it would still be even if like we
it'd be like Detroit really.
Or we could like, even if like because of like how the roads work and how the waterways work and everything like that, even if we did like abandon those cities, there would probably be significant population centers that are like right by that city.
Yeah, like Detroit's a good example of that. Like half of Detroit's population's essentially left, and there's a huge amount that's just completely abandoned. So if any cities, say the violence eventually goes away, or like the gangs basically fight themselves out or whatever, and then people slowly start moving back into it, it would be like people would pretty much just have villages in these huge abandoned infrastructure areas, and then they'd slowly sort of grow out.
What say you, Tiger Star?
I don't have much to add.
I think it's
Do you
still
come down on the side or anything?
I think it's still a good idea
What?
though, because it's like
Tristan was about to ask me something. What?
I was just wondering where you came down, or if you're just kind of undecided.
I'm just kind of undecided.
Okay.
I think it'd be a good video though. Like it'd really be sort of thinking about how people would react if that actually happened. And in the end, like in the global scale, it would work. Like it actually would probably Thanos would probably be right.
Thanos definitely
made a video on it.
Thanos is definitely is that actually the name of the person who did the super chat?
Yeah, his name was actually Thanos.
Well, I feel like he got a good mileage out of this one.
oh yeah, he definitely did. Damn. I guess we should continue on though.
I do think though that it is, even if we didn't come to an answer, I think that was an interesting question.
Yeah.
And if we had like a simulation to test out something so terrible, I would be genuinely curious to see how it turned out.
Oh yeah.
I feel like neither Cody nor I are extremely strong in our convictions about what would happen.
No.
And it'd be interesting to see how that would turn out.
I think it's more of our biases, because like I live in a more rural area, you live in a city, so it's like we're basically split that way. But yeah, man, that'd be a cool video. Anyway, Fedora asks, how much would Italy joining the Central Powers have changed the war?
Very little.
And then he also said, also women in Australia were non-combatant auxiliary only. So, I think, what Tiger Star said, like, Italy's just, they're...
Like, what did Italy do for... Okay, so Italy in World War One, they were part of the Entente powers for the most part.
They fought against...
They fought the Germans through, like, Switzerland. And they also...
No. Not Switzerland.
Okay, like
Switzerland
through
is
like the
neutral.
mountains.
They
Like
fought
they were like
Austria.
They fought Austria
Yeah,
and then German reinforcements along their border,
yeah.
and they barely advanced past their border at all by the end of the war.
Yeah.
They did fight in the Alps though. Like there's a whole thing about how climate change is
Yeah, but it wasn't
melting
Switzerland.
ice in the Alps, and it's like de-thawing these like Italian World War I soldiers, and so people are trying to go and get them and preserve them.
Yeah. Like one of the main reasons
really
why
all Italy did was waste resources of Germany, and even if they joined the Central Powers, maybe they can open up a new front line in France, maybe. But as long as America was still going to enter the war on the side of the Allies, they were just not gonna make that much of a difference.
yeah, like really
I
that
also will
was
say
kinda-
too that when it comes to like the Alps and the fighting in the Alps and those kinds of things, there's some personal history to show that the Swiss neutrality was not as cut and dry as it seems. Like German-speaking parts of Switzerland that kind of got caught up in the whole nationalism thing. Like Germans did recruit German-speaking Swiss people to fight for them, and like there was, because I know one of them was my great grandfather.
Oh wow.
So like this kind of stuff did happen, and there was a war in the mountains that happened in World War One. That's like there's another like really cool World War One story that could make a cool video game. But either way, Italy would joining the war would add a front to France, and France was kind of a country that was really overtaxed in the war. In that Piedmont area.
I'm just thinking
Yeah,
parts
but
of
as long as
Italy.
America was coming, it wouldn't have made that much of a difference in the end.
Yeah, Italy, modern Italy is just not a it's not a fighting state. It's sad. They do pizza well. They do the bippity boopity well, but they can't do fighting well. So, sorry Italy. Third Xenocide says, "What are your thoughts on Eric Flint's 1632/Ring of Fire series, and would any of you consider making a video about it?" I don't.
What's this?
I don't
It's
know
an
what that
alternate
is.
history series, but I've never been able to read it because I've never been able to. I mean, I know I can get it off of Amazon, but I do a lot of reading by just getting books from my library just because it's free.
Yeah.
But like, I've never been able to find the first book in there or Barnes and Noble or anything. Maybe I'll get it off of Amazon or something. But it's like, from what I understand, it's an alternate history series where like a Civil War battalion goes through some sort of time warp and they end up in the 30 Years' War in Europe, and shenanigans ensue. But I've never read it.
Yeah, there's a lot of alternate history books that I need to catch up on, but yeah, I don't know. Who else? World War II Gaming says, "Have a good day." Thank you. You too. Like that's my favorite.
Thanks, man.
And then David Rojas said, "What if religion never existed?" I think that's
wow,
like
so much would be different.
I think that's like saying, like, what if? That's like saying, what if like government didn't, like, what if emotion didn't exist? I don't know. It's like religion is such an abstract concept, you know?
Especially because like a religion's more of like having a ritual around something that you make extra special, for lack of better term.
It's
Because like there's still like like idol worship, and
Yeah.
so like, is it possible to have like a religion based around being wealthy or something like that? Like you can make a religion out of anything, and so
you could make a religion out of
not
this.
being able, not having a society like where you never put anything on a higher pedestal, that would change history so much that there would be no way to accurately predict it at all.
Yeah, like
Okay, so yeah.
No, go Tristan.
So like I guess there's like one thing I could mention, and I'm trying to find this thing somewhere because the name of this group escapes me. But there's like, I'm trying to think of like what kind of point of divergence we could have to have something like this happen in the first place. And the one thing that comes to mind is that there's a tribe in West Africa that the name escapes me, but they have no religion. Like religion didn't develop in their society. And it happens because they developed a culture that puts an extreme amount of emphasis on what's the term, like being able to
Dank
what's
memes?
real is what you can see, like
Oh.
very much like if I can see it, it is real, and that is it. And I guess like something like that would have to be a very powerful cultural phenomenon in early humanity for there to be a society with no history. But as Cody, you've done in a few of your videos in the past, I think that the circumstances creating something like that basically pushes the reset button on humanity.
Yeah, it's basically just taking a core sort of tenet that humans have. Like, it'd be like, what if humans didn't have emotion? What if humans didn't act the way they do? Like, that basically just changes everything, and we might. It's an interesting concept, but that's why I usually have like more specific religions, like, because those are like well documented historical sort of events on history, and if they didn't exist, like, other religions then would take their place, and there's a solid sort of evidence and a divergent point that you can go from that. But yeah, that's a good question though. It makes you think. Thanos asks again, have you read the Ender series? No.
Nope.
No, I have.
I've only read Ender's Game, and it's a good book, but I would not read any more. Or I mean, I would not buy any more of those books because worse than Scott Card.
I knew you were gonna say that. Let's see.
Oh, Tristan, you and your principles.
Dominic DeGregio says, this is more of a personal one for me, but I wanted to say it. Are you still uploading to Knowledge Hub? Yeah, so about Knowledge Hub, Knowledge Hub is basically run by my brother, and he's been on a hiatus a little bit for personal reasons, and he's basically getting back to it, but since we're trying a new thing with Knowledge Hub that it's going to have its own unique identity under him, that's why I haven't really came in and made my own videos, because that would kind of sabotage this sort of new personality we're trying to do for Knowledge Hub. I promise we will have new videos soon on that channel, but really it's whenever he gets back to, a really solid schedule. And I can't promise when that will be, but it will be soon. But really, that's why Alternate History Hub has kind of I like doing history videos because it's fun, so I don't want to just limit myself to just Knowledge Hub.
Yeah, Alternate History Hub is becoming the new Knowledge Hub.
Alternate History Hub is really just about anything I kind of want to make. Like, it's alternate history, but it's also history, and it's just about topics that I want to do. It's going to be like it has to be a majority alternate history.
The occasional video when you get mad.
Yeah, it's just going to be like the occasional video. It's going to be a video that I want to make, that I want to bring in new people. That's it. Yeah.
And now you're going to do the same with Geography Hub and just change the name from Alternate History Hub to like Cody Hub or something.
Cody Hub. I just wanted to throw in there. I wanted to thank. I missed their name in the chat, and I'm really, really sorry about this. But the tribe that I was talking about, in case you're interested, are not from Africa. They're from Brazil, and they're called the Prahaya tribe, or Piraha with like the squiggly over it.
Yes, that tribe is really interesting because they also have a language / form of writing to where it only has 8 letters, and it's like the record low for like the lowest number of phonemes in any language that we know of.
That's weird.
Yeah, they're pretty interesting.
I think we'll do a few more.
Sorry.
Wait, what were you saying? No,
I just say sorry for distracting everybody.
Oh no, you didn't distract.
I just really appreciated the person who pointed that
out.
Speaking of appreciation, has everyone noticed that like people stop saying "I appreciate it" and now people only say "I appreciate you"?
Oh, it was Andrew Kelly. Thank you, Andrew Kelly.
I appreciated.
Like I used to remember only hear I appreciate it.
Oh.
Like, oh thanks. Oh, like thanks, I really appreciate it. But now I only ever hear I appreciate you.
I
I felt like this just randomly
feel weird.
like this
I feel
switch happened.
I feel weird because nobody's ever told me that ever. So now I'm just thinking I'm not popular. Nobody appreciates me. Oh my god, that actually is a fantastic video idea. Holy shit.
Nobody appreciates me.
No,
What if nobody appreciated me and it's just you yelling?
No,
at
not
everybody and
that.
you're
Not
like,
that. I think this is a good. I'm gonna
most passive aggressive
I'm
video.
gonna actually put this in a thing because somebody suggests. Okay, so
And it actually goes trending.
no, I think
was
this
that?
would be a fun. This would be a fun little video. I'm pulling it up right now, but somebody. Okay. Can I? Yay. Okay. Global Warming Productions, which is it's a funny name, says, "What if the Western Interior Seaway never drained?" And I was like, "What is this? I've never heard of this." So I looked it up, and that it's the map that is there. It's basically at one point in history, North America was divided by a sea, a small shallow sea, and it was because of this sort of fertile, and this was kind of the thing that eventually made the Great Plains fertile. And what he was asking is, what if it just stayed like that? And
I wouldn't even be alive.
I mean, I'm thinking of like, that'd be so fascinating. Like if everything else just kind of stayed the same, except for there's just the sea where the Great Lakes are. And I think that'd be a
Manifest
good
Destiny stops at the Mississippi Sea.
That'd be a good video idea. I mean, you could have, assuming it didn't like have drastic temperature changes, and which I mean it would, but
alternate history scenario, Cody. What would happen if you could live on the moon?
what if you could live on the moon? That's actually a book idea that I wanted to have.
I know.
What if humans could breathe
I'm
in
making a
space?
callback joke.
Oh yeah. I forget what ideas I tell people. So, oh well. But anyway, that's a good idea. I like that. God, there's so many ideas that we get from this podcast, and it's so hard to then go and further do those ideas. But I did the Middle East idea. I did it. It took 2 videos, but I did do it. So you can't say you're still waiting on that. David Rojas said, actually, we're gonna have to wrap this up, but we'll do like 3 more questions. Why not? David Rojas says, what if the Native Americans were as advanced as Europeans because of domestication of animals?
Yeah, that'd be pretty different. Like, I mean, the domestication of animals specifically would allow for more beasts, depending on the beasts that they could get. Like, domestication of animals.
I mean, if they didn't
would
hunt
more
horses down.
Yeah, if they had their horses, if they had like some of the kind of Pleistocene creatures that were in the Americas before, you could have ended up with a society that not only has a lot of its own beasts of burden, but also a lot of the disease resistance that came with close proximity to animals, but they would be very different. So really, first of all, it'd be kind of a coin toss to see who discovers who first. And whichever side, I think it would be like a mass die-off on both sides, because the American diseases would be completely unique from the European diseases, and the European diseases the other way around. And so they would just exchange them, and each one would have that like 90% die-off before they reboot.
I'm just thinking of Europeans dying because they got like some strange woolly mammoth virus from the natives. And it's like,
oh man.
I mean, they could
also terror bird shock troops, like cavalry. It'd be like real life chocobos.
Actually, that would be God, there's so many good video ideas from the super chat. Just like the idea that
See, you don't need to make history videos. You're good.
Yeah, if you're pumping out these good ideas, make your own alternate history channel because you obviously have good ideas.
It's not the fact I actually love making alternate history videos more than history videos. It's just they always have such drastically lower views. So it's like if I can sort of, it's just a little thing like adding fuel to the fire. That's all it is. That's all these.
You'd be happy if there were more alternate history channels out there. So
Of course, you realize
go
that
make some.
if you're aware that your history videos get more views and then you switch over to those history videos, then eventually it's going to get to a point to where you're going to choose those completely over your alternate history videos.
Well, no, because then that alienates a part of the audience. So it's like, you know, it's always good to have a diversification of content. So if I just have occasionally a history video, and then that history video fuels sort of, you know, the other alternate history videos too, then that's, you know, it's not that bad. Joshua Rose, thank you for your contribution. He didn't have a question, but
go make YouTube videos. Cody inspired me to make YouTube videos. And if you have an alternate history scenario that you think is interesting, do it and make it. And
actually, there are there are actually.
It's not even like it's not even like an inspiration thing. Like you literally gave me a Skype call where you told me how to make videos.
Oh well, yeah, I did do that. But there are actually a few good alternate history channels. There is
alternate history PT.
No. There's Mazzaman, who he does the closest to anybody in on YouTube does what I do, and that's Mazzaman. His content's actually pretty good, but he also talks about he actually ironically does what I'm gonna start to do. He talks about little weird history stuff too. So yeah, if you want to, go check him out. But anyway, I think we should probably start wrapping this up and get to the. I want to just see a few questions, and then we can go to that. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. I think we can just kind of say why. So Immaculate Conception says, I don't want to cause a flame war, but do you guys care about politics at all?
Yes.
Yes,
never
we do.
Look at my Twitter.
Yes, we do. But the thing is that I don't know.
We're all on very different poles of different political things, so
yeah, we're
for the sake of
completely opposite on like.
Okay, that's not true.
I mean, I know that.
I mean, I remember one time, like, I told you, like, some things I wanted, and you're like, I don't disagree with anything that you said at all. Usually what we disagree with are, like,
I'm saying more compared to
small
Tristan, not
stuff on issues.
I'm saying more compared to Tristan, not really.
Oh, I'm a total weirdo, yeah.
but like, yeah, I mean, we don't really involve. If I involve politics into my work, then people are gonna sort of, every single time I make a scenario or I do something historically, people are gonna say, oh, that's just from your perspective. I've already been called biased so many times. Like, people have made videos about it. And
yeah, well, I meant, like, you started Alternate History Hub. You told me the story once where you started Alternate History Hub because when you saw alternate histories on YouTube, there was, like, at least one where, like, every single scenario ended with, like, mass communist revolution. You're like, well, I want to be a little bit more, nuanced than that.
Yeah, like, there has to be a little bit of, there can't be a complete, bias. I mean, everyone's biased. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm unbiased. It's just, if you're completely blatant about the views you have, and you show that in your work, like, communism wins every single time. Like, Tristan, I know your political views, and I know that you won't even do that. But it's like...
Nah. I mean, I could.
Make your own...
I mean, like,
be the next alternate history PT. Do it.
Yeah. There's different ways to do it, I think, if you're going to approach your, like, your editorial position on things that you're doing. And either you try to take yourself as much out of the piece as possible and sometimes that works. Sometimes you can do that. Sometimes, though, depending upon what kind of a creator you are, you're going to end up with a product that is very bland and very like lacking of juice.
Yeah.
But the other way to go around it is to say, all right, I have a position, and I'm just going to say it before I start, or at least make it clear enough that you at least know where I'm coming from, so I'm at least being honest.
Yeah, like that the media video I did last week, that is not what like that's not like what the new videos are gonna be. So it's like I don't know. I feel, man, that stop. Sorry, people probably heard a Facebook thing. In terms of politics in like new videos and stuff, that media video was only because it was like the least biased I could be about something. But if it was like, you know, I could never imagine making a video about, you know, like guns are bad or guns are great, or you know, we need to basically do that because it's gonna alienate some part of the audience. You know, when I make the media video, the only people I'm gonna alienate is the media, and I don't give a shit about them. So, you know, that's all. At least leave a little bit of a mystery to what it is. But I think most people suspect...
For me, you can just go to my Twitter and you'll find out pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, my girlfriend actually unfollowed Tiger Star because she couldn't take his she couldn't take him anymore. It made me
like
laugh.
I just take the stance of I'm not gonna bullshit people, and I'm not gonna like always go out of my way of going, hey, this is what I believe, and yada 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 yada.
On Twitter I do. Like, on Twitter I usually I'm a
but like on my Twitter, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna retweet from the people I like because I agree with it, and if you don't like it, you can unfollow, and I have absolutely no problem with that.
Yeah.
And I'm like Tiger Star on hard mode, so like if you think Tiger Star is rough, my Twitter is very rough.
She unfollowed you like a year ago.
If you also want to yell and argue with me, I happen to enjoy arguments, so go ahead and do that. I could care less.
Yeah, me too. Actually, that would be the funnest thing if I could make a.
We need to have a podcast episode where we just yell at each other over issues. Then at the end, we can just be like, "You want to get like Taco Bell or something?"
Sounds good. We get mad about the serious political issues, like what happened if Thanos wiped out half the population.
There were many times that we there were sometimes that we actually did have those like political conversations, and then we'd be like completely. But then it turned out to be like we kind of agreed on some stuff, and then we just kind of
looked at it from a different way.
Yeah, and then we just work them out, and it's.
I think we live in this era where not only do we have buzzwords for every political position, but we also have this idea to where if you go from a certain angle, you associate that certain angle with a certain realm in the political sphere, and so you automatically assume you know where their argument is going already, and you want to try to be 2 steps ahead of them, but then you end up going in like this weird confusing circle because both sides try to do that. We believe the same thing? Oh, okay, cool.
My secret dream is to be the next Alex Jones, but like a smarter Alex Jones. That'd be fun.
There's no such thing. That's like, I'm going to make smart, dumb content.
Turning the freaking Fox gay! I'm a pioneer! I do.
Cody, no, because you should actually try to be a moral person.
But I could say that the frogs are being turned gay. It'd be great. I'd do it.
Yeah, Alex Jones is like actively like abusing people's mental health for money.
He literally declared a Christian holy war on a CNN host.
He's a cuckoo.
Only the Pope can do that, silly.
Well, actually, he just said that he believes that the Pope is possessed by Satan.
That's
he's
funny.
That kind of guy.
That's funny. I'm surprised he didn't say that earlier, to be honest. That's fun. My grandma thinks the Pope's possessed by Satan. She's that's the thing.
Oh my gosh, the Pope's actually being Christian.
I have not told my grandparents yet that I'm a Catholic. So
Oh boy.
Never gonna tell. Well, I am. When I do tell
Ring,
him,
ring, ring, ring.
When I
Hello,
do tell him,
it's Grandma. I've been listening to the So That Happened podcast.
You know,
you just
just
gave
be
me a
like-
heart attack. I'm going to die now. Bleh.
You're
see
a
what
tool of the Vatican.
Satan.
Yeah. See what you can just say is go, hey, if you don't accept the fact that I'm Catholic, I'll excommunicate you from my Thanksgiving dinners. Don't do that.
She was very vocal about it when I was a kid. Like she basically was like always like the Pope is an antichrist, and like it was funny. It was always funny her views she had. She could never go into a movie theater because she thought that she didn't know what movie was on before then and what demons would be from that movie and spawn from it.
Oh my.
Yeah, like
Is your
she's
grandma
that
from like the 14th century.
Yeah, no, she's like
Did she also think that Harry
severe-
Potter was evil?
She's like, when Harry Potter came out, it was like literally the devil happened.
Well, what's so funny
They
is like
burned. She was a part of those
Oh
like
my
freaks
God.
that burned Harry Potter books.
like
I
what's
tell
so
you all, the
amazing.
earth goes around the sun. Burn him.
What's so amazing is like literally like the moral of the story is that love conquers all. Oh my gosh, that sounds satanic. Let's burn it.
Oh yeah, like it was.
Oh man.
Yeah, like she was, and she got like most parts of the Bible wrong too. It was just funny.
Oh well, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, enough shitting on my grandma.
We're sorry, Grandma.
Yeah. Sorry.
The demons on the internet have
Sorry, Grandma.
come through the internets.
My other grandma's cool
I've been-
though. I love my other grandma. Man, I guess we can. People contributed to the super chat, and I feel like we should probably answer their questions before.
We are officially announcing the super chat cutoff
Yes,
now, and the
please stop
super chats given
contributing.
to us after this point we will not answer, but we
Yeah.
will still gladly accept your money.
Yes.
But we'll just do this quickly. We'll just try to get to the 2-hour mark, and that's it because YouTube. Okay, we'll do that. So first question: high quality memes. What if Sweden won the Great Northern War? Sweden would be a much more European power, much larger one.
It would be much more European.
Much more European. They wouldn't have
Much more
this.
Swedish.
I guess that's the best we could say is Sweden would be bigger.
And somehow ABBA would be that timeline's Beatles instead of the Beatles.
What do you think would
You'd have
happen
to
if
see-
George Washington would? Raven's Wrath asks, "What do you think would happen if George Washington was shot and killed at the Battle of Brandywine Creek?"
Well, the revolution would have been won by the Americans still because the reason they won the war was more because of Marquis de Lafayette getting the French and the Spanish and the Dutch to all join the war against
I
America.
was actually more of thinking just the presidency. I wasn't even really thinking of him as a general.
Well, the question is, who would actually be president? Because I mean, I
Jefferson.
guess you could. Would it be, or would it still be John Adams?
No, Jefferson didn't come back to the United States until the
Oh really?
1790s. He was in France.
Oh damn.
It would have been it would have, I don't know, maybe been Charles Lee or something. I don't know.
Because I mean,
I'm thinking
it
like
could have
James
still
Monroe.
feasibly have
It'd
been
be like
John
James-
Adams.
Yeah, it'd be like James Monroe or like John Adams. It'd probably be John.
Now,
Adams.
James Monroe wouldn't have been 35.
Oh yeah, he was gunning.
Um,
Yeah, it'd be John Adams.
But
Yeah.
but the main
Interesting though, the
thing would be
Federalists
that
would be
like
completely dead because Alexander
No.
Hamilton wouldn't have had George Washington to broadcast his ideas.
yeah, but they still would have been strong enough to form a party of some kind. Because John Adams was a Federalist, and George Washington tried to avoid joining any political party.
Yeah.
Even though he leaned Federalist, he was still officially not a part of any party.
The Federalists were a bit of a mess, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an understatement. Kyle Clark says, "What if the French had gone through with Operation Vulture in the First Indochina War and nuked the Viet Minh that were surrendering Dien Phu? Bien Phu? Is that what it's called?
Bien Phu.
Yeah, Dien Bien Phu. He said he had a phi for some reason. In the First Indochina War. So what if the French nuked the Vietnamese?
That would cause an international incident for sure.
Yeah, you want
Yeah.
France to become an international pariah real quick.
I didn't even know that was a thing. I actually
Yeah.
learned they had. Man, that's petty. That's
France
French-
has
the French, like,
France
they
has
love-
been historically very stubborn about giving up their colonies more than any other power.
well, yeah, they got
And
like
they
all
Just
also
look
have
at
historic-
Algeria.
They've also historically really, really loved nukes. Like they haven't used them, but they like 80% of France's power comes from nuclear power. And if you look at like the list of like who's done the most nuclear testing, like France is like really up there.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
if
it's
you ever
because they
watch that
feel like
video,
that.
if you ever watch that
like
video
they-
of nuke tests, like there's just this period in the 60s and the 80s that Algeria just gets nuked like 50 times. Like they just.
I mean, France was just so concerned about keeping its world status after getting so humiliated in World War II that it's almost like their overcompensation.
They basically lifted
That's
up their
right, we
truck.
got nukes.
They basically lifted up
Yeah.
their truck internationally.
And like they were notable for doing a lot of nuclear testing in French Polynesia and the Pacific. And even after the Cold War started dying down and completely ended, for a while they just kept doing it just to show off until there were a whole bunch of protests and they
Yeah.
finally stopped.
Nuclear weapons are kind of the geopolitical version of truck nuts. That's my answer.
And that so
Now I'm just imagining a genre of international country music where they talk about trucks and nuclear weapons.
you say that like it's a bad thing.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
And then I nuke the Tennessee highway. And blow
Ferdinand
near
the Seventh
rings.
says talk about the Führer Reich Hearts of Iron 4 mod. I don't.
What's this?
I don't.
Never played it.
Yeah, I never played it. I know Kaiserreich. That's the main one.
What's that one? Is that just like Wilhelm II is
basically-
still alive or something?
Yeah, it's basically Germans win World War One, and it's like, but it's way more complicated than that. It's actually really
I
good.
know,
We'll
it's
talk
come
about
up several times. People have asked us to talk about it a lot, so we should.
that. Yeah, that's
Maybe
actually.
we should. People also talked about us doing Hearts of Iron stream again, so maybe we can put 2 and 2 together there.
Yeah, I do Kaiserreich. That'd be great. Actually, I got a new PC, so it actually run it way better. And then the last one was Jack Barnart says thoughts on the History Buffs channel. So this is actually a funny story.
I enjoy their channel.
I actually
I'm still waiting for that collab, Cody.
so this is a funny story, and I don't know if he's ever going to see this, but I actually I was originally supposed to do a collaboration with History Buffs, and I love this content. But and we originally planned to do a collaboration on his Aztec video, and I created a little segment that would go on his video, and then I was supposed to then release a video about Aztecs. Well, eventually this was like planned months in ahead, but then he went on a trip. I think it's like a long time ago, so I don't really remember the thing. But what ended up happening is he released the video before I even had the video finished or even started, because I was expecting it was going to be like another month, and he was like, sorry, I have to go on a trip, and this video needs to be out now. So I was like, oh, and then he released the video, and it was like, basically then if I released the video, it would have been like 2 weeks later, and it was just like and I never had the stuff from him, and it was one of those things that was just like the scheduling for both was so off that it ended up just like we stopped communicating. And it's always that thing that I always cringe at today, because it's like I've never
You shouldn't have let a 2-week delay stop your collaborations. That's how it worked with ours.
I know, but it was like it just was one of those cringe things that, like, I don't know if I can go back and be like, yeah, so do you want to work together still? It just be
Hey.
and it's always one of those things that in my YouTube career I just always feel like it was just one of those awkward things. So
It's
Yep.
like having the like having those cringe middle school moments that
Yes,
that
that's
no one remembers but you, and you still go like, oh gosh, that happened.
yeah. It was just like, I don't know. Sometimes when scheduling collaborations, like, you know, video schedules are everything, and um, sometimes they don't work out. Sometimes they kind of fall apart. Um,
And then I just keep yelling at you until you do it.
yeah, and then you keep yelling at me, and it works. But yeah, that's the fun thing. And I think we should. I'll just say, Christopher Gustafsson, thank you for your contribution. Uh, don't even know how to answer that question. But he says, "What if World War II and World War II, the neutral powers formed as a third side that fought against both the Axis and Allies?" I'm just thinking of a Hearts of Iron game where you form another faction and you fight everybody. I don't even know what that would be. Like, they probably
Well, that depends, like, what year of neutral powers he's talking about. Because, like, if it's like 1940 neutral powers, then at least they'd have the U.S. But then
Yeah.
if he's talking about like 1945 neutral powers, that would be like Switzerland, Tibet, and like 2 South American countries.
Yeah, it'd be
'Cause
like
most
they
of
would.
the countries had jumped on the bandwagon by that point.
Yeah, like they.
This makes me wonder, did anyone ever make a In the Balance mod for Hearts of Iron 4?
No.
Oh, like Turtle Dove's World War? That'd be great.
I think
You're
it's
fighting
harder.
a giant conglomerate of all of South America, Africa, Australia, and half of Asia.
Hearts of Iron 4 is actually really. I've heard it's kind of hard to mod, just because it's not like Civ or anything. Like, you have to basically completely change the maps and stuff. But man, that'd be somebody get In the Balance mod going. That'd be great. Like, how would that even work? Like, would they? Oh, somebody made a zombie mod. That was actually really fun, because you get to play as zombies, and basically your troops, like, you get like 20 new divisions every turn, and so eventually you just start having like billions of troops, and you can go and take down the Soviets and whatever. But I'm rambling on that. But oh, if it is, I don't know how easy. Okay, but anyway, you guys want to call it?
Yeah, we had a good one.
Yeah.
Talked about fun stuff.
Yeah, we did. It is still really hot in my apartment, and I'm gonna have a heat stroke. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna die. Cool. So I guess we will call it. Thank you, everybody, for watching this live stream and us just kind of bicker back and forth. It was a good time. Good time was had by all. Anyway, I am Cody.
I'm Emperor Tiger Star.
And I'm stepbackhistory.com, Tristan.
And this was the So That Happened podcast. I hate everything.